Random Real Estate Show, where the mics are hot and the opinions are hotter. We're a show about random things and occasionally some real estate. If you like to listen, you can find us on www.houstonshomeconnection.com under the podcast tab. If you like to watch, like Josh and I do, you can find us on Facebook or YouTube under Houston's Home Connection Team. And if you want to participate, you can email us at justask@houstonshomeconnection.com or leave us a comment wherever you happen to be watching. So Josh and I have been gone for a week. We both took some vacation separately. And so if you missed us, that's where we were, and we're back and on our normal schedule. And so today I think we're just going to probably be talking about our vacations and maybe things that we picked up and maybe a few current topics as things go along. And so welcome to the show, Josh.
Thanks for having me.
So I went to Louisville, Kentucky. Got to say, it was a big contest there of who says it right. Louisville. You got to leave something out.
So the S is silent?
I guess. That's just, if you're there, it's one of those deals like if you're from a place, you have to have it say it a certain way. So Louisville.
I don't know. So that "ul" is weird.
Yeah, I know.
How many people call Louisville that come from
I did just to see how many people would get mad at me.
Bet that was a few.
It didn't, I'm
sure you didn't have to say anything and people got mad at you.
Not really. I will say this. As you can see, those of you watching, you can tell I have on my Nolan Ryan throwback jersey today, and I did wear Astros gear every day on the trip. And oddly enough, I had people yelling at me every day, "Go Astros!" So,
well, everybody hates the Yankees.
Yeah, I know. So. Well, that's where we were at, and it was like, who do you want, Nationals or St. Louis? And everybody wanted the Nationals. I didn't find a single. I saw some St. Louis fans with stuff on, but everybody who talked to me, they're like, "Go Astros!" And who do you guys want to face? I sure hope it's the Nationals. So
there's some. Good. Obviously, I dislike the Cardinals. It's not like you word hate. I don't hate.
Right. No,
Cardinals,
right.
But being a Cubs fan, your Cubs are Cards where I'm from.
Right.
And I just dislike the Cardinals.
Yeah, well, I think it's the same reason the Yankees, they love to throw their multiple championships and whatever, and it's like, okay, well, those were quite a long time ago, and so why don't we talk about something more recent? So anyway, that was it was back to we're trying to come up with how do you say Louisville. And so I kind of have it down. I'm not a native speaker, but I was good enough that nobody blinked whenever I said it.
Right.
And we basically the kids were on a break, and we just decided to go find somewhere we'd never been. And Louisville was a cheap ticket on Southwest, so we took it.
So that's one of the fortunate things of being located in this area. We have a great airline system, either through Bush, IAH, which can do a few different ones, but United being the main, and then Southwest down at Hobby.
Right.
I mean, we're perfectly located. Obviously, Hobby's a little bit farther away from me and you, but I mean, we're very fortunate in that aspect.
Yeah, it was a 2-hour flight. I mean, it was an hour and 45 there and like 2 hours and 5 minutes back, and it's nonstop. And there's hardly any place other than as I know we're going to talk about where you went. Unless you're just going to someplace kind of really small out in the middle of nowhere, you can get a nonstop to just about anywhere. And moving here from Oklahoma, where we had to go to Tulsa or Oklahoma City, it was impossible. You were never getting a nonstop flight to anywhere unless it was like Kansas City or you were going to a stop destination. If you're going out to either of the coast, you were stopping somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really nice to just get on a plane in 2 hours. I do not enjoy flying in the least, and so. It is a whole lot faster than driving, so just what we did.
Yeah, so what's the weird thing I thought, I got to Chicago from Houston lickety-split. I mean, it was like hour 50, and that was nuts. And then the plane ride, and I'll get into it, from Chicago to Quad Cities. You get up and then you're coming back down.
Yeah, and I've been on those. Like flying to Dallas or something, like it's almost like it feels like flying to Dallas is almost a waste of time, because by the time you drive to the airport, go through all the stuff, sit and wait, get on, get off, whatever. It feels like you could have driven there and taken an hour longer. So
you probably could have, but man alive, that drive stinks.
Oh, it is. It sucks.
So tell me about that arc. I'm pretty interested in hearing about that.
Right. So we went to Louisville, and then we started going, okay, what are we going to do there? And the Ark Encounter, it's called. So a gentleman named Ken Ham, he built a life-size replica of the Ark, and if of Noah's Ark, if you're not familiar, and I'm going to make it. I am going to, it's funny, yeah, because we called Josh No Boat, since his last name is Arkless.
Yep.
And he grew up, people called him Noah as a nickname, but assuming most people have some picture of Noah's Ark in their mind and know the story or something about it. So it was real interesting for us to go, and I didn't really know what to expect. And we got out there, and he has built this monstrosity of they call it a building. So it's not really what it is the building is shaped like a boat, but there's a connector to it. That's a true building with bathrooms and what have you. So if you ever go, you'll see what I'm talking about. But the fact that I think what I found to be the most intriguing was he says, look, we've taken some artistic license because there's a lot of stuff in the Bible that's not talked about, but we did go back and do archaeological research to say it's not out of the question to think this is what they did. This is how the boat could have looked. These are some things they could have done to feed the animals. Like they had these automatic watering and feeding systems set up, very primitive, but we think of them as like Stone Age people. And yet during that time, there's archaeological proof that they were very much advanced and knew how to do stuff. So you kind of take out this, kids Noah's Ark thing and start putting an adult mindset on it. And so I just went through, his belief system of Genesis and the Bible and what he thinks happened. And, short of getting into all that, I just found it fascinating that somebody is so dedicated to his beliefs that he went to this level to build something.
Did he fund this himself?
I'm not sure. I mean, obviously you pay to get in, so there's that. I think, I'm not totally sure. He's got I think the Creation Museum, which is in Cincinnati, and I think maybe the Bible Museum, which is in Washington, D.C. He's part of that, or those may be his, but he's pretty well known. Like he's debated Bill Nye, the science guy, about biblical beliefs versus evolution, that kind of stuff. So he's got books and all kinds of stuff. So I'm sure there was some funding there, and obviously foundation and different things. People have donated, you see the different levels of donations that people gave to be recognized on the wall inside the Ark of gold, silver, whatever it was. So, any number of ways, but it's like, I think if you go with an open enough mind to say, listen, if you don't believe, just go to be amazed that somebody went to this level. And what they've done is, in the Bible talks about a cubit, and they've done some research a cubit was the distance from the elbow to the tip of the finger, I think. But since everybody's different, there was a royal cubit, so whoever was in charge, but they're thinking it's around 18 inches or so. So then that's where they extrapolate it. So this boat is 510 feet long.
Wow.
Here's the thing. The Titanic was bigger than that. The Titanic was, I think, almost double that. So that was what the boys were like, holy smokes, this is how big this, and the Titanic was bigger. And we've been down to Galveston and seen, some of the cruise ships in there, but we've never been on one. So it's hard for them to really fathom, only because we've driven past. Oh, look at that ship. So they even took that Titanic reference to, wow, if that's how big this boat was, that thing was huge. And so it was just a good time there. And then we did go to the Louisville Slugger Museum while we were in Louisville itself. And if you're a baseball fan, which obviously I am, it was fun. They had like all these pieces of wood, like, hey, this one day this will be Yordan Alvarez's bat, and you could hold it and go through and see how they make the bats and stuff. So
what does Louisville Sluggers hold on the market? What's percentage of players do they handle?
Oh man,
let's say the major leagues. I know,
right? It's something like 80% of all Hall of Famers used a Louisville Slugger. They've got plaques on the wall, and so not every hitter is under contract with them, but some still use their bat. And so if you ever see a bat and the name is in cursive, we'll call it, that is a person under contract with, I think, Hilrick and Bradley. So Louisville Sluggers is the brand name.
Mm-hmm.
The company is Hilrick and Bradley, I think. So they were, the person was under contract with them, and if not, then it's just in print. So
Yeah.
they still use the bat. So it's, it's probably the most iconic bat name,
Absolutely.
In America. I think we found out they got sold to Wilson back in 2015, but I love stuff like that. And then on the last day before we left, we actually went to this former hemp plantation there and just talked about, it goes back.
Well, you guys took a dark tea tour on this vacation, didn't you? Well, actually, not dark, but fun.
Yeah, no, it was fun. I mean, I love history. I love going to old houses, especially ones where they've kind of redone it.
Oh, so you said hemp, so you weren't getting the wacky
No,
tobacco.
no.
Oh.
Well, all right. So hemp is a close cousin to the other
It
stuff.
is a very close cousin.
And has been legalized because it does have a marketable use as in a lot of things, CBD oil being one of them, that kind of stuff. I think the soap that I use every day has actually got hemp in it. It was natural soap.
Was it made by a lady that doesn't shave her armpits?
No, it's Dr. Bronner's or something. We were in an Airbnb in South Carolina, and the lady had that in there as like the complimentary. And I fell in love with it. We came back and I had to go find it.
Yeah, well, different day, different subject, but yeah, CBD oil through hemp has a lot of good.
Right. So this is just
additives.
A plantation from back in the day, and they would break that down and create. They didn't create the hemp for sailing ships. It was for twine that would bind the cotton bales, and then those kind of burlap coverings. It was used for that. So it went into the days of slavery, and I've gone to Monticello and seen Thomas Jefferson's place, and so it was a good deal, just to open our eyes to, yes, on the backs of other people, our country was built, but beyond that, it was just cool to know this thing. Abraham Lincoln was in the house I was in. Abraham Lincoln stayed in that house.
Wow.
So he was friends with the owner, and they talk about Lincoln never owned slaves. He was never part of that. His family never was. But as he was made aware of it through his associations, he began to develop his reasoning for the Emancipation Proclamation and thing. And so this gentleman there, they have letters back and forth where he tells him, like, how much it pains me that you have slaves, and how much it pains me every time I get near the Ohio River and this to see it. And this gentleman eventually, his brother became the Attorney General for Lincoln, and he himself actually helped keep Kentucky in the Union, even though they differed. So we'll go, we can go a little bit on the Ellen Bush thing that came out. They differed on opinions wildly about a massive topic of the day, and yet they remained. It was said this man was his best friend till the day he died. Joshua Speed was his name, and he believed in slavery, and Lincoln didn't. But they were best friends till the day he died because they could discuss things they differed on.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought. Won't talk about it very much, but you talk about that Ellen, and Ellen can be very outspoken on a lot of things. That's the one thing I'm very proud of her for, is because whatever your politics of George Bush, there's not many people who don't like him as a person.
Right.
And they seem to be having a good time. They're sharing probably selfies and taking selfies. And Ellen came out and got a huge backlash from people. And I thought it was good of how she came out and says, look, do we believe in everything? No. You know what I mean? Are we friends? Yes. You know what I mean? And that's the beauty of not only America, but that's the beauty of, being a human person, and showing kindness to another. You don't have to necessarily be on the same page. As long as you can, come to grips with that and still see through that person as a good person.
Well, and I think that, that's what I think that's the biggest thing that people are saying nowadays is, what happened to being able to disagree without hating someone? It's cool. We don't agree. I have tons of people that I know for a fact
not like that anymore.
We don't agree. And I hope I've done a pretty good job of maintaining a friendship. And some of them, it's because of their adamant stance that they're right and I'm wrong. And I just have cut off ties and said, well, I'm not gonna go there. To me, I find that the better deal. If you can't remain friends because we disagree, then there's probably no reason for us to, hang out
No,
anymore.
good point.
But,
You don't.
yeah, I'm not going to say, well, I'm just for the sake of me beating in my point, I'm going to stay your friend.
Yeah.
Or really your friend of me. It's like, just why don't we just go our separate ways? And that's happened, more than a few times.
Yeah,
but
you just saved yourself on that. So let me ask you a quick question on the hemp is, because I only became familiar with hemp, and obviously it's been around for a long time, and now people are more apt to it and making clothing and whatnot. But I wonder why it wasn't as big a deal as cotton back in the day. Seems like it had been a very valuable type of material to be used, but maybe cotton was just the thing that took off.
Well, hemp, from what we found out, hemp was way harder to actually get to. It's a reed, and then they have these hemp breakers. It's these like a big block of wood it's set up, and they would have to sit there and pound it until they could break the actual fiber out.
Oh yeah,
and turn it into it. And so, and I think we've refined it further in our day that we see it differently than what, one, you had to go through so much just to get it back then, and then probably wasn't the same product we get today. And the deal he was saying their hemp, they couldn't use it in the nautical term. That came from Russia. So Russian hemp is actually what was used for ropes.
Gotcha.
And that's why this was used more in just twine and stuff that didn't need to be as strong as everything. So it was used in the as he called it, the king cotton economy, but it was just more of a byproduct type of thing to be associated with. And then it went up and down wildly, So it was like that was their cash crop, but they also raised tons of other stuff on that plantation because the price could drop rapidly, and that's all you had. You were hosed. Versus, you also had other vegetables and things that you sold at market.
Yeah.
So overall, my impression of Louisville was, if you're looking for a place to go, I think it's a great place to go visit. The weather was awesome. I think it probably gets hotter in the summer. I think they said 90s, so it's not like they're totally out of it. But it was a great city to walk down on the Ohio River. They've got some great stuff set up. Very historic place. So the national headquarters for the Sons of the American Revolution is actually located in Louisville, Kentucky.
I guess I never would have thought of history when thinking of Louisville.
Yeah, I mean
or Kentucky alone.
It goes back almost to the Revolution. It wasn't a state of its own, but the area itself goes all the way back to pre-1800s. So just a cool place. And then you could walk across this bridge that used to be a train bridge and get into actually Indiana. And there's Jeffersonville. You're about an hour away from Cincinnati. And Lexington is over there. Of course, the Kentucky Derby. We drove past, Churchill Downs. Just a ton of stuff. And I don't know, just sort of opened your eyes like, wow, I never knew all this stuff was in Kentucky. But it's there. So looking for a place to go, Louisville, I think, is a great place to go visit.
Gotcha.
So how was that was my trip. How was Iowa?
Iowa was good. Iowa was real good. Posted a few things on social media. I haven't been back. I actually stayed with a person who I went back for last time. He had gotten married 6 or 7, maybe 7, 8. I think it was 6 or 7 years ago. So that was the last time I had been back. Most of my family had all moved away, even though that's where we all were born and raised. And I lived there 30 plus years. So to be away, to go back, I thought it'd be more nostalgic, but I didn't find it to be. You know what I mean? It was weird. Like you drive past houses where your kids were born. You know what I mean? And I don't know. Maybe it didn't grasp me as I thought it would, which was a weird dynamic. I told my wife the second to last day I was there, I was able to use a car from my buddy, so that was kind of nice just to get in. And I personally love quiet time myself. So when I was younger, I would get in my car in the mornings, just drive around when the city's quiet, right? I still like to do that occasionally. But I went to my old grocery store that my wife and I lived right next to when we first bought our first house. And I'm not kidding you, that baby was set up the same way as when I lived there. And I bebopped in there. I knew right where to go. I knew where the cold section was at. So that was pretty wild to do that. But like I said, most of my family is gone from there. But it was good to Stay with my buddy Jim and his wife Amy and their kids. I haven't been around a 5 and a 3 and a 1-year-old in ages, but it was good. They keep you on your toes. So
Yeah.
I was very happy for their hospitality they showed me. And what's weird is it's just like us. We're in the Lake Houston area where when I moved here in 2011, plenty of area, right? So where I grew up in Iowa was on the Mississippi River. So we called it the Quad Cities, where literally 10, 15 minutes away, you're in 4 different cities.
Right.
And where we grew up, I grew up in kind of the older part, and I go back now, and you'd go further out, which was just cornfield. And just like here, when you see a field, not necessarily a cornfield, it's now restaurants, bars, hotels, casinos. You're allowed to gamble in Iowa, which is pretty nice. I didn't do any of that, but they have really nice casinos and stuff like that. But just a weird dynamic. I posted a picture of myself in a traffic jam there, but it would happen to be behind a John Deere tractor and not actually traffic. So to go back, decompress, chill out, and just take a breath, because you can do that there. You know what I mean? To get where I'm going, I'm passing cornfields. I'm not passing houses, not passing buildings. But it was neat. I was glad I did it. I was glad my wife was able to.
So let me ask you a question, because
off.
I've done gone back to where like you, I'd spent 30 some odd years living in Muskogee, Oklahoma, as I mentioned many times here. Was your impression of the city or the house, did it change? Like what you thought of it when you left there the first time to go, okay, I'm leaving this town that I grew up in. When you go back now, does it feel different to you? Because it did to me. If what I thought of the town, I don't think that way about it anymore. I'm not saying good, bad, or indifferent. Just whatever, this place I thought of as home just doesn't feel like home anymore. Does that make sense?
My general area, where I probably spent 95% of my time, looked the same. I mean, it really.
But did your impression of it, like how you felt about it then, do you feel differently about it now, or did it, it's about the same? Because I just looked at the houses there, things that I thought about certain areas, like, wow, this is the country club, and I'm like, okay, I mean, it's still beautiful, but it's like I've seen some areas way bigger and nicer now that I've lived in Houston, Texas. So it just sort of, it sort of skewed my view of them. I still think they're very pretty nice places, but it's not the same as it was. Does that make sense?
No, I completely understand what you're saying. I don't necessarily think I felt that. There was a funny part, because I drove past my wife and I's very first house that we bought, and we did a lot to that house. Pretty much revamped it. And that wasn't the last house that we owned before we left Iowa. We had left it 4 years prior. And I'm not kidding you. I think the same plants my wife and I planted are still there, looking horrible. And at the time, red mulch was cool. So we laid down red mulch. I think that same red mulch that I laid is still laying there, because now it's a graying.
Right.
Oh, my gosh. But, yeah, so my house looked not so great. And then a duplex that we lived in, and then my mom's house. They all didn't look up to snuff. But that was also... the city's not worried about that part anymore. They're taking the money out north, where you keep building out, right? But it was good. It was good to catch up with some of my buddies that I haven't seen forever. You spend so much time with those guys throughout your life, and then you just don't. And I'll never regret leaving. I think it's not for everybody, but it was definitely for my wife and I to.
Right, I agree with that.
Find out what we could actually do in life, you know what I mean?
Right, because I knew a lot of people that left Muskogee and went back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I went out, I saw whatever else, and I need to come back to that place. And I have only lived in little towns all my life, and I needed to get out and see like there was more out there. So just for me, I couldn't go back. I noticed that you went to a football game. Was that the same group of friends that you went with?
Yep. Known them guys. Lived with them, throughout life. Had been with them since 13 years old or so.
Wow.
And, man, I don't know about you, but I don't get to many football games around here, because I'm not a Texas A&M homer. Houston Cougars are what they are, So I don't like the Longhorns.
Take a shot at her broker one more time.
But boy, man,
he's an A&M. He's an A&M alumni.
But a Hawkeye tailgate.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen that any better. I mean, that is just, those people know how to party, and it is just fun.
Yeah.
And the weather was a little nipply, but it was tailgate weather. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, yeah.
People had the...
we haven't had tailgate weather here. I think by the time we get tailgate weather, the season's over.
Saturday's going to be 90 again.
I know.
But, people had the spiked apple cider and the brews. And I will say it's an event. You don't just plan to go tailgating that morning. You plan it the week before, and you get ready, and you go up. So this was a 6:30 game against Penn State, so it was supposed to be a big game. A lot of people were there hanging out. I had a blast. The game, unfortunately, did not work out for Iowa, and they played like dog doo-doo, just like they did the week before against Michigan. But outside of that, just had a blast.
Let me ask you: have you? And so I'll preface this. So we were at that historical plantation, and there were some people there with Iowa gear on. So I did think about you. And the gentleman that was leading tour says, "I will tell you this: if you ever get a chance to go to the Iowa State Fair, you have to go. Have you ever been?
Never.
Really?
Well, so in our area, actually in my old hometown, we had the Mississippi Valley Fair, which was a smaller version, but you still had big act,
right?
You had big country acts coming in because that was, you didn't have the big guys who currently at the time are doing stadiums, but you were getting pretty popular guys in there. I will say there wasn't anything I was going to find up at the State Fair that I wasn't getting at the
right, and that's why I agree, because I was like, well, I've been to the Oklahoma State Fair in Oklahoma City, I've been to the Tulsa State Fair, I'm like. Because he was like, oh, anything you want fried, you can get there. I'm like, yeah, like just about every other fair I've been to. So I don't know. I was just curious if you were going to go like, oh, no, the Iowa State Fair is something way different than anything else you'll ever experience.
No.
And I'm not saying I wouldn't want to, but I think there's fair experiences that not everybody have had. And if they did, they'd go, okay, that's equal.
Well, so, yeah, no, I agree. Maybe the guy's never been to a fair outside of that, but the same vendors, they travel around.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and if they don't, they're cooking the same thing the other vendor does.
The one thing that the Iowa State Fair has that I have never seen at a different fair, and this is their claim to fame, is they have a full-size butter or a cow made from butter.
I have seen it. I've seen that on TV.
Yeah.
So probably at like the Iowa. They've probably been showing a football game, and the Iowa State Fair was going on.
So what? I saw a really cool thing. This must be a new thing to the Iowa football games, but right outside the stadium. Do you know what a combine is?
Yeah.
Big old combine. Yeah. This thing was painted all black with a nice hawk on the side, but it also had humongous LCD TV on the side. So if you didn't go in, you could watch it off the combine. That was cool.
That's their version of tailgating. That's country tailgating right there.
No, Iowa knows how to drink, and it's the Busch Light, which up there, and this is no lie, I walk into the Iowa City place to buy a 6-pack, and the Busch Light, it says Busch Latte on it. My wife and I just used to tease.
Yeah, I knew you told me about this.
Yeah, it's really on the can. And, Carson King up there, we talked about him in one of our pods.
That's So I was like, when did we talk about that?
Yeah, he's golden.
Yeah.
So it was a good time.
Well, good. I knew we had made the plan, and then you said, hey, I'm going. And so last week we just didn't really have time to fit a podcast in without, making a fool of ourselves, trying to stumble over each other and try to get everything done. So we went ahead and took a break and came back this week and figured that's what we talk about. And hopefully if people listen to us, they find us amusing at times, that we will just sort of speak our minds about anything and everything that comes to mind, including our personal lives and our families and what have you. And that was, I think both of us needed that break. I know I came back, without having to, mess with anything. And I just came back. The only stress I had in my life was whether or not the Astros are going to win. And so far we're pulling it off.
Yeah, no, when you can, there's something about being away, obviously it's good to get away. I suggest that for anybody because it can take the stress away for a little bit. And we had a good time, or I had a good time. That was the first time I've been away from my family, all 4 of them in ages. So it was good to go back. And As you can probably tell from this podcast, Tom and I are always off the board a little bit, and we'll never be real estate centric because I just don't think you guys want to hear that all the time. But one thing that we like to concentrate on to prove, and well, not prove, but to show to people is that we're just normal like everybody else. You know, we shop at the same grocery stores as everybody in the Lake Houston area. You know, we know the area. We're fathers with the local schools, and you know, we'd like to talk about different subjects. And today just happened to be our, probably in a lot of people's cases, a lame vacation, but it was good to dust off and kind of recoup.
All right.
But thanks for joining us this week on the Random Real Estate Show. Make sure to visit our website, houston'shomeconnection.com, where you can subscribe to the show by clicking the podcast tab at the top of the page. We're also on iTunes, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you'd like to speak with us about any real estate items, feel free to contact us at justask@houstonshomeconnection.com. As always, go out and laugh today.
See you later.